Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the Sidekin podcast. Sidekin is where we weave healing fates and fortunes for our people and ourselves. And as you know, I'm obsessed with the lived experience, what it's like to live as you and what it's like to live alchemy. So we have another incredible guest on today's podcast, another fellow projector, a 1-3 splenic projector to be exact, and he is also a wide split like me, which we'll go into later on because that relates to relating itself. But Ben is here to speak to us about his lived experience in his life as a projector, as a healer, as an alchemist, as a seeker. So he truly is an alchemist, healer, and a guide to other seekers on the path of inner alchemy, the transmutation of shame into self-love. Through shadow work and energy healing, he helps you reconnect with the parts of yourself that you've long rejected so that you can find freedom by remembering who you've always been. I love this. It's so potent. It's like medicine in a person. So I'm really excited to speak to Ben. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so we connected maybe a couple months ago now. I think it was through... No, we've been in touch for a while, haven't we? But I was lucky enough to be invited onto your podcast to talk and rant and rave about religion and God and the voice of God and all of the things that I am passionate about. But there's been little hints of things that I've wanted to draw out of you because you're essentially a cauldron of alchemy yourself. And well, you really are. I feel like the 1-3 profile is a hilarious profile to live. I just look at it and think like it's kind of a cosmic joke because you have this foundational necessity to get to, the depths of something, the core of something, but then your body's bumping into whatever the hell it bumps into. So what you've lived as your actual experience is the body of work that you kind of draw from now. And, from our conversations, that's definitely something that you've been delving into. So I'd really like to start at the beginning, which for me is, when did you meet human design? What happened? What was that like? Let's start there because there's multiple things I want to draw out of your lived experience. One of them being relational aspects of relationships as a third line, as a projector, as a not self. And I have a feeling you might be bringing some of that into when you met human design. I'm not sure, but talk to me about that. How did you discover human design and what did that do for you? What impact did that have?
Yeah, that's a great intro. When I first met human design, it was a time in my life where I was sort of rediscovering and reconstructing everything that I thought the world was. Right? I grew up in Christianity, so it was went to a Southern Baptist church and was very very indoctrinated and strict in the fundamental Christian view. And around my Saturn return, which I didn't know was at the time, obviously, because I wasn't into astrology, being a Christian, but it was around the time of my Saturn return that actually things started to fall apart for me. And so I started questioning and deconstructing all of those beliefs that were programmed into me and how I saw the world. And it really kind of culminated into like, I feel like I'm a believer. Like I want to believe in the extraordinary. I want to have like a grand mystical experience. And I really took that belief as far as I could go, and I kind of went to the edge and then realized like, well, there's not really much here. What are we doing here? We're just coming to church and singing praises and boosting God's ego? Is that it? Um,
Don't put a
and
projector in church, man. Don't put a projector in church. We will dissect it. Especially a 1-3. I
yeah,
love that. Yeah, okay.
yeah,
So you started asking a lot of questions.
yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I went through this whole deconstruction journey, and then 2020 came along, and we went through this global experience of a pandemic, supposedly. And I started questioning a lot more of our reality. And yeah, so through that whole journey, I dove into various different views on what reality is. I kind of looked at Hinduism, I looked at Buddhism, I listened to a lot of Alan Watts, who is still one of my favorite philosophers, Ram Dass. And then I started going deeper into like more esoteric and occult stuff, realizing that occult doesn't mean evil or demonic. Like literally, the word occult just means hidden.
Mm,
Just like ocular.
mm.
What is our eye? If something is occult, it's just hidden from our view. Very similar to the word esoteric.
Oh, I
And
love that.
yeah, so I was already kind of into that and exploring that. And when human design came along, it was in the depths of doing that. I had just moved to Texas, actually. I had taken a job. I moved my family in 2020, along with that, right before the pandemic hit. I bought a Airstream and I was going to renovate it. And I was like, we're going to travel. We're going to live in this thing and we're going to travel around and have an experience. And then the pandemic
Well,
hit.
can I just interrupt? It's an interesting thing to say as a kitchen's environment with shores, with the transference. But we'll
Right.
put that aside for the real nerds. Continue.
Um, yeah, that had always kind of been like exciting to me. I was like, I want to travel and
Mm.
experience things. Um, and anyway, that didn't all work out. So we ended up buying another RV, moving into that, and life was for various life reasons. And then we decided, oh, you know what? Forget the Airstream. Even if we don't have enough money to finish it, we'll just travel in this cheap RV that we have. So I'd taken a job in Texas where, surprisingly, for a guy that was renovating Airstreams, and I was going to do his YouTube channel and help him. And then the other person that he had just hired was a carpenter, fine finish carpenter from New Orleans. He and his family also were kind of doing the same thing, renovating an Airstream, or at least starting to, and wanted to travel in it. So we ended up, my family and his family, living on this guy's property who we were working for, living next to each other in these RVs, and like literally from right when I met him, it was like this connection, right? And we started talking, and we realized we were all into the same thing, super deep stuff, and it was like, oh wow, this is really cool. So the whole time we're working on this job, we're also like listening to podcasts and discussing it and talking. And anyway, I was listening to one podcast about a completely different topic. I don't remember what it was, but the host or the guest brings up human design and talks a little bit about it. And so I'm like, oh, that sounds really cool. My wife at the time, I thought, I bet she would like this. I wasn't even thinking like, I'm like, oh, that sounds cool, but I bet, I was like, hey, check this out. And she had already heard about it when I told her that. And so I was like, okay, I didn't really think much about it. But then it started coming up through her and through other things that I was seeing, and mostly through the what we would call pop HD. There was a particular Instagram account at that time. I don't know if it's taboo to mention it, but um,
Get
it was very
get it bleeped
popular,
out.
and it what?
Get it bleeped out.
Yeah, get it bleeped out. It was I can't remember her name. Zoe,
Oh yeah.
Zoe,
Hmm.
Zoe something.
Hmm.
Um, anyway, it was just very sugar coated, I guess you could say it, and kind of watered down to make it more available,
Hmm.
which is fine in its own sense. It just didn't speak to me as much, and so everything that I was seeing from it, obviously having already deep dived into this very spiritual, very esoteric, seeing this system spoken about in such a way that was so on the surface. I was kind of like, oh, like I feel like there's truth in there, but I don't know, like it's just not really like resonating with me. And so I found out I was a projector, all this stuff really resonated with what the 1-3 profile was described as. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I already know I'm an Enneagram 5, which is pretty similar. And so I was like, yeah, of course. Like I love researching, I love studying things. That's what I've been doing for like the past 8 years. Um, so that makes sense. The projector thing though didn't really resonate with me at all. And I know it was a lot of my not self conditioning. I was like, I don't really
Interesting.
feel like that's me,
Can I
and
ask, like, what pieces you remember feeling just not like you? The invitation part, the waiting, the.
yeah, I think there was some resistance to like needing to wait.
I'm like, ah, two third lines on a third line day doing a podcast. What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
God. We were like triple third lining today, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
But where were we? We were at the
Um,
Amazing Connection. We were at the Pop HD. We were kind of
yeah.
not feeling resonance with this whole projector concept, which is really interesting. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I found resistance to this idea of needing to wait for an invitation to go to do anything. And
yeah,
at first, when you hear that, you're like, "What do you mean? I gotta just wait to be invited to do stuff? Like, what does that mean? Do I just sit around and wait, till someone just like, hey, why don't you come to lunch or whatever?" And I
totally.
was like, that
Can
just
I
sounds
ask?
stupid.
I want to ask something. Is that because you didn't have sort of like a frame of reference of what that actually felt like in your body, living your life up to that point? I'm curious about that. When the way that something's explained and then your actual experience of yourself in your body, in your life, sometimes they're so far apart they don't actually make any sense. But I wonder if that had been framed in a different way, more perhaps along the recognition side of things, like when you're really seen,
Yeah,
boom, 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 everything happens, rather than like you just sit in your house all day long waiting for somebody to notice you. I'm just really
yeah,
curious about that.
I think that's exactly it. Because it was just like, oh, this is your strategy. Wait for an invitation, and it's just kind of like what? But later on, when it really clicked for me, I realized, oh, why does nobody talk about this? Why is no one talking about recognition? Like that's really the key here for the
Mm,
invitation is that we need to be recognized for who we are. And then once that recognition happens, someone can invite us because they see who we are and what we bring to the table, and then they extend the invitation to say, "Hey, I really would like what you have. I like what's going on there, whatever." And then it's on us and our inner authority to recognize that invitation as something that is correct for us, and if it's really true, authentic recognition of who we are, right? And that was, I
mm,
think, where the disconnect was, and it took me a long time to to get there as far as the information goes. Yeah.
mm. Fascinating. Um, was that, did you feel like it, when you started getting deeper into, I guess, the more first line aspects of human design, did you feel like it gave you self recognition that you hadn't had yet?
Yeah, there was a lot of self-recognition. Um, Obviously, there was some resonance that I already felt and knew, like, okay, the 1 profile. The 3, not so much. Obviously that's
Mm,
unconscious. And so, I mean, it was there definitely a little bit. Some of the other things I didn't fully see, and probably until more recently, honestly, as I've
mm,
now been in my experiment fully for like a year and a half of radical experiment. Um, well, has it been only a year and a half? I feel like it's been more, 2 years. Um, but yeah, at first there definitely was some recognition. And again, like I said, I didn't I was still, it was just kind of like dabbling and hearing things of like, oh, this is what your human design says. Like, oh, that's cool. Or I would see a post on Instagram go by that says something about a projector or something about the 1-3 profile, and it didn't really go beyond, like, it didn't really get into channels. The gates were kind of uh, presented as the gifts that you have, right? But
Mm,
not, there was no explanation of like how the mechanics actually work in the body graph.
mm,
Um, so yeah, so there was definitely like just kind of like this slow learning process.
yeah, amazing. How did that start to shift things for you? I know you said you sort of like radically started testing things out in the last couple of years.
Yeah,
What consequences did that have on your life?
a lot.
Opening up Pandora's box yet.
Yeah. So as I as I was getting more into human design, the knowledge, and hearing more things, and I started actually finding more people. Um, Gene Keys actually came online for me more than human design at first,
Mm-hmm.
because I read, I had heard like a bits and pieces of the gene key for my life's work, which is your personality sun gate, and that just, like, I was like, what? Like, I never heard anything. Like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I read the whole thing, and literally that night, as I was like trying to sleep, I just felt like this restlessness, and I felt like this heat, and it was almost like there's this smoldering fire that was burning in my gut, and I was like, it wasn't uncomfortable, but it was definitely like, oh, something is weird, and it was hard to sleep. And so anyway, I just felt like it activated something in my DNA that was like changing me. And
Wow.
so yeah, so I really got into the gene keys, and it wasn't until a little bit later on, when I had first started listening to Ra Uruhu, the founder of the human
Yeah.
design system, that it just all resonated for me, and I knew, I was like, oh, this is human design, you know.
You've been filtered through the wrong fractals until then.
Yeah, I was like,
Mm.
oh, okay, I get it now. Like, and then I just started consuming Raw lectures, and I was listening to everything I could get, and I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. Like, I see this and that. And then I was like wanting, like, obviously myself, but then I was wanting to understand all the other things, because I had all these people in my life. And so I was like, okay, that's their profile. And I listened to that, and I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. And so I was beginning to really understand human design through all the other people in my life, which then has helped me understand myself. And so to go back to your question of like how has the human design experiment changed my life, or what problems or troubles did it bring me? Uh, it was really, I reached a point where looking back on my life, realizing that even though I had so much resistance, and couldn't see the projector dilemma in myself of not having consistent energy. Like, I was like, I work hard, I hustle, I like, when I have something, I do. But now then I was able to actually look back and see like, oh yeah, I forgot, like, I do have these cycles of burnout that I go through. And remembering even how like years before I was talking about um like, oh, it would be great to have a week off once a month, or trying to set up my schedule. I remember reading it was like the 5-hour work week or the 4-hour work week,
Oh
some
yeah,
kind of
Tim
like,
Ferriss. Yeah.
yeah, Tim Ferriss, yeah. And I was like, yeah, like, I really I want to figure out how I can work less and make more money. um So it's funny looking back at it, but realizing I've had this burnout cycle and the rhythm just kept getting faster and faster, where it would be like quickly burn out and then maybe even not faster, but it was like shorter energy periods, longer burnout periods, and that pattern kept growing. Um, so then I finally reached the point in that pattern where I was like, I really need to experiment. Like I really need to commit to the experiment of what does it actually look like to live as a projector. Because I feel like I'm either, if I continue living the way I'm living, trying to chase after being a manifesting generator, essentially. I have three manifestor siblings, or manifesting generator siblings,
Mm.
and my mom's a generator. I was the only projector. Well, I don't know what my stepdad is, but uh, so I was very heavily conditioned with this, energy of like go, 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 constantly under pressure. But my realization was if I don't do something, I feel like I'm going to get really sick or possibly die. So I need to try this and see, because up until now, while yes, I may have survived up until now, I haven't had success. And that was a big thing too, is looking back and feeling, I don't think I've ever really had success in
Yeah.
my life.
Despite hustling to the point of burnout multiple times, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, where has that gotten me?
Yeah. It'll work
Nowhere.
this time, says the mind.
Right. Yeah. So I started experimenting radically, where I just started waking up every day. I'm splenic, that's my authority, so it's very in the moment. And so I was like, okay, I know I need to tune in. I don't really know what this looks like. I don't know what it feels like. I have all these explanations and wisdom to help point me toward it, but it really comes down to me experimenting with it and figuring out what does this feel like for my body. And yeah, so I would just go for as much as I can, just listening to my body. Wake up. What does my body feel like doing today? And luckily, I had a job that was very flexible and was pretty much like I was basically helping a friend of mine who is a businessman, and it was like you can do work or you don't have to, And so I was like, perfect. This is perfect. Um, so I just wake up every day. Do I feel like going to work? I don't know. Not right now, and I would wait until later on in the afternoon, maybe decide to go, maybe not. Um, Even down to the point of like, okay, I feel like I should do some yoga, like just to stretch my body. And I would start doing yoga, and then I would just find myself just laying on the ground for 20 minutes and like thinking I should do like down dog or something, but my body just wouldn't move. My body's like, no, I just want to lay here. And so, that posture, I think is it Vipassana, where you just
Yeah.
lay on the ground.
Savasana? Yeah. The
Yeah,
corpse pose.
Vipassana, yeah, the core pose.
Yeah.
That became my favorite yoga move. Yeah. So that's really just what it was. It was like, and I think it went on for 2 months, at least 3 months of a lot of me just hammocking, spending my time hanging out, just doing the very minimal of, trying to do the day-to-day responsibilities I had to do, pick my kids up from school, make them lunches, all those things. But then in between, it was just like, okay, this is my time. How far what does my body really have energy for, you know? And uh, yeah, I was also going through a lot of other things in my life, like divorce, and we continued to live together for a year. And so there was a lot of stress and nervous system things that I was also going through. But through that time, I think it really helped me get in tune with what was going on in my body. That allowed me to kind of find my center and, yeah, how to
Yeah.
listen to that inner authority too.
I'd really love to hear your wisdom around relationship and being yourself. because I can't imagine what that must be like to be kind of moving into a state of coherence with yourself, but moving out of a state of coherence relationally. Not to say that it was incoherence, because I think for a lot of us, we live in dysfunction. A lot of us live in dysfunction for a long time. But yeah, to be kind of moving in these opposing directions mentally, I feel like that must have
Yeah.
been a lot, because you have a defined head, you have a defined ajna, you don't switch those things off, they kind of run in the background, and you have a wide split between that cognitive definition and your ego, your spleen, your root. Like, I want to just put in here the reason I mentioned wide split, and maybe you can talk a little bit about this as well. Ra, the human design founder guy, he talks about the way that the circuitry within the chart works. And when you have disconnect between separate parts of you, when you're in connection with somebody else, the way that you experience the connection has a specific flavor. So if you have a very small split and you just need one gate to bridge your energetics so that your energy is flowing all through, you tend to think that you're the problem in a relationship. But with a wide split, you have this experience that I'm not getting what I need from the other person. It's like you're the problem in the relationship, the other person is, for a wide split. Now, I'm saying this as a wide split, also divorced projector. Ben, you're a wide split, also divorced projector. I'd love to hear what that experience of, I guess, coming to that point of breaking the bond, how you've digested that. I loved what you said in a conversation that we've had about, I realized that was the perfect relationship for me. It served, like, it was a successful relationship in the sense that it served the purpose that it needed to in the evolution of, the way that we grow and the way that we experience ourselves and expand and all that. I'd love you to speak about that time of your life. I know it's not easy to go there, but also I guess us third lines, we're really here to share about what we've experienced. So I'm going to just throw that invite over to you, and whatever you're happy to share would be really, really useful, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to caveat one thing you said, that, my defined head and ajna is always running in the background. That's not right. It's always running in the foreground.
Loud and proud.
Loud and clear.
I'm with you, man.
All the time. No, but yeah, that's very true. So even though the relationship ended, whatever problems that we had and trouble connecting and relating, all the real regular shit that everybody kind of, do you mind swearing on your podcast?
Go for it.
Okay. All the regular shit that any relationship goes through, despite all the hardships, all that stuff. Yes, I look back now and I can see that, that was the relationship that I needed, because it was the relationship that I had during that time in my life, right? How could I have had any other relationship? I can't go back and change it. It's what happened. And so now I can choose, how am I going to look at it? And am I going to look at it from a negative point of view and think that was the worst time of my life? Well, that might be true on some level. It's really not. And I can look and say, oh wow, look at all these things that we went through. I survived one, but now I can pull all of the gold, all of the lessons, everywhere that the other person showed me that I was having a negative reaction, right? I was having an issue where there was something that I was believing about myself or the other person, which is ultimately a belief about myself and how I relate to that person. Now I can look back and say, okay, these are all the lessons that I learned, and I can be so thankful for it. It's when I love one of my human design mentors, Travis Day. He wrote a whole podcast, a blog about how human design ruined his life. And I love that. And I've related to that so much because human design, not in and of itself, but really stepping into who you are. If you've built an entire life around being somebody else or not being your true self, and then you start to embody your true self, all of that other stuff is going to start to lose its footing and start to fall and crumble. And it's going to look like your life is falling apart. I would
Mm,
argue that's not really your life. It's a life that you built around conditioning and trying to get something or get somewhere based on all these false ideas, right? Um,
yeah.
yeah. So when I,
That's a mic
start,
drop moment, honestly. Like it destroyed my life, but was it mine?
right.
Was it even
Yeah.
mine? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so as I'm experimenting and trying to really come into more of myself and live and honor my body, my inner authority, my needs and my boundaries, and that is not what I've done in this relationship for 10, 11 years. Obviously, the other person is going to go, well, what the hell? Like, what about me? This is
Mm,
not what I'm used to. And
yeah.
especially when that involves, you know, finances and
Yeah.
things being taken care of. And, you know, um, I do want to be careful of how much I say, just out of respect for the other person. So I'm like,
Totally.
okay, how much do I share? But there was moments like that I can look back on that were things that were said to me. And now that I realize, like, oh, those were very triggering for me. And it was almost like there was a condition set at the beginning of the relationship that it was, and I can see now in the other person, uh, especially from a woman's perspective of needing to be taken care of and needing to make sure that, safety and security is there, that it was like, there was a moment of, you're going to make sure that we're taken care of, right? And you're going to do whatever it takes, even if that means like working multiple jobs. And for whatever reason, that pierced me through the heart. Like, it was like, what do you
Well, it's
mean?
kind
Like,
of like saying you'll promise to betray yourself for our sake, right? And it's like, how can you ask that of someone? But at the same
mm,
time, I can see the two being,
right,
a woman wanting to be taken care of, needing that to be explicit from your point of view as a man, and then also seeing you as a projector man. Like, I kind of want to really delve into what it's like to be a man, a projector, and a father, and all of these things that I want to say there are expectations of energetically, not even culturally. There's the biology of a
mm,
man and a woman, but how is that expressed through a projector man? Because it is almost like the antithesis of this pushy, aggressive energy of masculinity that we see portrayed in a lot of life itself. So what's going on there? What is that like? How is
yeah,
that?
yeah. It's been a lot to
Yeah.
digest and process. Yeah, there definitely is all of that, and yeah, not knowing, back then, not knowing any of this human design language. A lot of the men that were in her life from church and family,
Mm.
always said they were very aggressive, the typical man, especially in like patriarchal, Christian ideology. I heard very strongly how passive I was, you know, as a man, and that I needed to be more. I don't even know. Um, and it didn't. I think on a deep level, it did bother me, and it did hurt a little bit. But on another level, there was definitely like my defined ego was like,
true.
like through you guys, like I'm gonna do whatever I want. Like this is how I am, you know?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's almost like the anti-recognition, right? Because it's like, let's judge you by these standards and find you wanting. Meanwhile, you could probably destroy them psychically with the conception that you like, you find their weakness and just my father, my
yeah,
dad is a projector. And I've heard him argue a lot in my life because my parents were that kind of, projector generator thing. And the precision, the devastating precision of a projector is not to be, you know, danced around. But yeah, you're kind of being
yeah,
judged by this standard over here. And it's like, well, you're not that. So you must be
right.
lacking.
Yeah. You're lacking. You're this weak, pathetic loser, not fit to have a wife or a family.
Yeah.
And yeah, so there's definitely that, cultural standard that's out there for sure. And I don't know that um, I'm trying to think, I don't know how much it really hit me. I mean, it definitely took time, obviously a lot of people say, projectors won't burn out until their 30s because, we're young and if you're healthy enough, you got enough energy and you got enough amplification of all the generators' energy around you that you go until you crash, which is definitely true for me.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, we had kids like almost immediately before my son was born before our first wedding anniversary. So I was just thrown right into it,
Christian.
Yeah, yeah, and we weren't even trying. It was just like, oh, cool. Part of me, I always did want to be a father, and
Mhm.
I was really looking forward to that aspect of it. But boy, is it hard when you don't have, a lot of energy. I think I was blessed with having my first child be a manifester because he's so much like
Mm.
me. He doesn't have the sacral energy, and he's actually a fully projected manifester, meaning he doesn't have any of the actual manifesting channels or manifested channels.
What is
Uh,
the motor to the throat?
well, he's emotional authority, so it goes solar plexus, root, spleen, throat. Yeah, so he goes all the way
Oh,
around.
interesting. It's filtered through all sorts of things. Oh, that's fascinating. Solar
Yeah,
plexus, root, spleen, throat. Okay.
yeah, and ajna, and he has the ajna.
Oh, what a
Um,
combo.
yeah,
Yeah, okay. So you had a slightly easier first run with,
yeah,
with your kid.
yeah. In
Yeah.
some ways, obviously your first kid is hard. They're up all night crying and you're trying to figure it out. And then the second one was definitely a lot easier. She was definitely a lot calmer, didn't cry as much. She's a generator.
Mm.
Um, so, but definitely not as much energy as I see my friends' kids having. So I don't know. Like like all of my friends who have kids, I see their kids and they're just maniacs. I was like, my kids were never like this. So thank God.
Yeah, something that is really, I want to say, controversial in the human design space. I like throwing these things out here because they're hidden and I'm here for the hidden things. But Ra speaks about, the projector as not being the one type that's not here to leave genetic remnants, meaning like you're not really here to procreate. I find this a fascinating concept, and I watch the projectors in my life who have children, and I'm like, how does that work? This is such an interesting dynamic. You're not really even here for more than one person at a time. And
Yeah,
then you're in this family dynamic where you're kind of in a leadership role, but you're waiting to be invited to lead in some ways. So you've got this funky dynamic with children that need guidance that's not always going to be invited, and the
yeah,
energetics, and then you have the partner that is such a massive role, such a massive part of that combination. That's a lot to hold as a projector.
it is. And yeah, a couple things come up there, and realizing too how once my kids were born, it was very hard to maintain the relationship with my wife,
Mm.
realizing it's like, oh, now this kind of becomes about the kids because
Yeah.
they need to be raised, they need protection, like you can take care of yourself. Like we gotta take care of this kid. um
Totally.
yeah, and yeah, there is that, which I haven't really connected the dots until you said it, but there's definitely an energetic expectation there of, um, you need to lead, but then because I'm a projector, uh, if I do take the initiative and lead and make decisions and do these things, it is always the wrong thing, and I can never do anything right.
The pushback, right?
Yeah, the pushback. Yeah, it's like, no, you made this decision. How could you? Well, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want from me? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm doing the best I can here.
Oh, how old are
Yeah.
your kids now?
So they're 12 and 10 this year. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. 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 And I definitely agree with Ra to a point that if I were to do it again, obviously I would never take anything back. I don't regret having kids. But if I were to do it again, I probably wouldn't get married, or I would wait a lot longer, and I probably wouldn't have kids. At least not until I've come into my projector success, where,
Mm.
the energy, being a non-energy type, is not a problem anymore. You know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that would be the key, and the recommendation I would have to any projector is don't rush. Don't rush into it. I obviously
Yeah.
had a lot of conditioning growing up in Christianity and feeling like you got to get married. That was like a very big thing of, that's part of the success, right? And as a
Mm.
man, it was like, yeah, I want to have a relationship, and I'm forbidden from doing any of these things outside of marriage, so I need to get married, and that needs to happen right away. So that was a lot of conditioning around that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. And I think for so many of us, maybe all of us projectors, we haven't really, this might be controversial, but I don't think we've really gotten the chance to experience ourselves as projectors until we've been invited to offer guidance.
Hmm.
I want to say that's like a rite of passage. You haven't tasted what it's like to be you, Ben. And I know that you guide now, so you've had that experience. And I want to see like experiencing yourself pre and post that. Would you agree? Like to actually be able to be yourself fully expressed, it kind of requires you to be involved in life in a specific way, which takes time and it takes development and it takes study and it takes embodiment and it takes silence and it takes, play and all that sort of stuff to really get to that point where somebody can draw on your resources. But that's when you're really getting a chance to be yourself. And most projectors are living as pretend generators, which is fuzzy aura, absorb, work, produce. It's a totally different process to
Yeah.
getting this precision guide to really kind of dissect somebody, It's I'm curious about that. I'm curious about your experience becoming yourself as a projector and getting into guiding actually. What did that look like for you to be able to, like, was that part of something that unfolded for you as you began to rest and be and live and kind of honor your own internal expression?
Yes. Interesting connection of dots here. So I actually did, now I'm realizing this, I actually did have the experience of being able to guide and teach people, because I was, basically out of high school, and up until around 2020, about 6 years ago, I was in the film in video industry. That's what I did. I did film and marketing, and mainly my passion was cinematography and even directing movies. I was going to go to Hollywood, never went. Um, and I went to a internship actually here in Texas, and it was at this Christian organization that was like focused on teenagers. But I got an internship at the media department, which was where they created all these films and videos for their conferences, these youth conferences that they held all over the country. And then after the internship, I actually got a job as the lead cinematographer, and part of that job was teaching the interns and guiding the interns into their doing camera work and lighting and all that stuff. So I do have that experience, in some way, although that industry is very anti-projector. It is, I mean, even there,
Hustle, eat, be
yeah,
savage, all those sorts of things. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you get like 6 hours, like the guy who ran it, like I remember he's like, you don't need more than 6 hours of sleep. And I'm just like, bro, I need like 10 hours of sleep. If you want me to be functioning. Like I never even considered that as like truth. I was just like, you're crazy. Um,
God.
yeah, but I remember even there, like at one point, and I think this is while I was an intern, I worked 36 hours straight. No sleep, just like this project has to get done and we are not stopping until it's done. And that was terrible.
That's how
Uh,
you burn out at 30.
yeah, yeah. And that was, there were many, many instances of that. But anyway, so I had that experience, and then yeah, I burned out with all of that, the media stuff over the years. I had a small business with a friend of mine. We ran in this small town for like 10 years, and then I was just kind of getting burnt out and disillusioned with the marketing aspect. I was like, this really isn't what I was passionate about, like just selling things. Like I wanted to tell stories. I wanted to do things that had a deeper meaning. And obviously the work and the hustle of it all finally got to me. And then I was deconstructing my faith and my reality once 2020 came around. And so I just kind of became lost. I was like, I know I don't want to do any of this film stuff, but I have no idea what I want to do. I'm very interested in all of this esoteric, spiritual, and a lot of health stuff, because I think I was sensing that I was very unhealthy. My body really needed to, I really needed to like see what are we doing that's wrong, and uh, yeah, so all of that really came into play, and which is part of what I help people now is transitioning into guiding, but it didn't really come until um, after I got divorced, and I was really going through all of that, and I'm like, I'm trying to distance myself from this really unhealthy, toxic relationship, realizing how much I got lost in that with an open G center, an open sacral center, feeling all of this conditioning coming out. She is emotional, I'm not. So she has she has a defined G, defined sacral, defined solar plexus. All of my open areas besides the throat. We share
Yeah.
a defined throat, but we as a relationship we were a 9 and 0. So we had all centers defined together. 9 and 0, nowhere to go, and that is
Yeah,
very true.
fit like a glove.
Yeah,
Except it's
yeah.
yeah.
So I was realizing, oh, how much of my life and direction became all about the other person. Very
Mm.
much so. And going back to that first, thing that I was telling you about, like, oh, make sure you do this in order to make sure that we're always taken care of. It was like, okay, so love equals money. That's kind of I think my subconscious took that in, like, oh, love equals money. So now I'm just I'm trying to do everything I can in order to just please the other person with money and financial resources. So yeah, pulling away, really deconditioning and deconstructing and finding who I am again in all of this. And obviously human design has played a huge role in that. And so I'm so grateful for human design, and I see it as like an amazing tool. And so I was like, I think I'm feeling called to this. And I also do energy healing work with emotion code and then some things with biogeometry. There's a little bit of overlap in all of these things as I see that the more I work with it, I'm like connecting the dots. And so I see how this has helped me so much. And I'm like, man, how much more could this help other people? And so I have that natural sense of like, obviously I have the channel of judgment and I have the channel of surrender. So I have this natural ability to be able to see the flaws or see the patterns where things aren't working and be able to transmit the corrections that can help improve, those things.
Yeah.
So yeah, that all kind of started to come together. And as I just started offering like, hey, or talking to friends, that's really where it came from, is like sharing it with friends and realizing how good I was at sharing and guiding and seeing things in people. And actually one cool synchronicity that happened during this process is that the guy that I was working for, who was very flexible, he actually went through a divorce right before I did. And so I was there a lot. We were living on their property. And so I was there a lot, and he would come to me and just share his grief and talk about his feelings, and so I really kind of naturally just helped him through this grief and the process that he was going through, and being able to guide him through and share all the things that I had learned and all the experience that I have gone through and the way that I saw the world and how, it can help. And so over time I realized, oh yeah, I'm actually really good at this. Like, and it was funny because he was paying a professional therapist like $300, every an hour or something like that. And every time I'd have these conversations, I'd share things with him, and he's like, yeah, that's exactly what my therapist said, And I was like, yeah. So yeah, it's kind of funny. So yeah, it was just this kind of natural progression into realizing my gift as it just started coming out, and I started living more in alignment with who I was. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I love that so much. You mentioned when we were talking before this about something that you've discovered recently, like in the last couple of months, that has been really cool and really exciting for you. Can you tell
Yeah.
us what it is? I've been like
Sure.
itching to ask you this whole time. We want the goss.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So there is something definitely birthing in me that has happened just a little over 2 months ago, actually. So it's very recent. It's very new. I call it my big breakthrough, right? Because you've probably experienced this. I feel like there's a collective awakening happening. There's a collective consciousness rising as we become aware of kind of how low we have, for lack of a better word, fallen as a species. And I don't want to. I don't frame that as a negative thing. I just frame it as like that's where we are. We've gone very deep into the human experience, very low, and into the heaviness, into the grit, into the emotion, right? And so collectively, we are in this shadow field, if we will. We resonate more with the shadow collectively, and we can see that in our world, just with all of the evil and the negative things that are happening around. there's a lot going on right now, and I think we can all feel it at some level. And so we're all on this healing journey. We're all seeking, if you're on a healing journey where you're seeking to better yourself, you're seeking to grow, you're seeking for perhaps answers. And so that has very, very much been my journey of, finding human design, finding all these different things, all these systems. It's all been about finding meaning. When I lost Christianity, when that worldview kind of broke down, I thought I had it all figured out. I thought, okay, when this is how the world was created, and this is what we do on earth, and we're pretty much just waiting to get to the end of our life and either die and go to heaven, or hopefully before that happens, Jesus comes back and saves us all from this misery that we're in. And that was my thought, right? And then that all fell apart, and I'm like, well, okay, well, what is it then? Like, if that's not it. And so I went on this journey, and part of it is healing and getting in touch with myself, finding out who I really am. And so I had a big breakthrough a couple months ago, and trying to, it's so hard to sum all this up into a good point, because there's so much backstory. Part of the projector journey, finding success, finding like, what am I here to do? Who am I here to be? And how do I find success? Because I am tired of striving to just barely survive, and I want to come into that fullness of who I am so that I can serve that. Because I do have a belief that if we find that, our higher purpose, the universe will conspire and align to provide everything that we need, and we won't have to worry about our resources. We'll be resourced. And yeah, so after the divorce, we lived together for an entire year. It was a good transition period. It was, I believe, really good for our kids, not to just all of a sudden be thrown into, now I'm living, mom and dad aren't here together anymore. And, so it was a great process to be able to walk through with the kids and say, hey, this is what's going on, and we're still a family. Even though there was definitely a lot of tension at times, it was like a roller coaster. Finding out, oh, wow, my nervous system is still very dysregulated. Finally moved out. It was like, okay, I was like, I want to live together maybe 3 months, and then I'm going to try to get out of here. Nothing came together. Ended up being a year, and I was just finally had to make a decision. It was like, I don't care if I'm packing my backpack and I'm going to start walking south. I'm getting out of this house because I just can't anymore. My nervous system can't do it. I need to get away. And so yeah, it was just like this intense journey of like, what's next? Like praying and meditating on like trying to manifest something. A call came to go to Hawaii, like in this invitation to go to Hawaii. This guy, he was building a retreat center. He had a farm. He's all into the regenerative farming, biodynamic farming. I was very much, that was one of the things in 2020 that I was like, oh, that's cool. I love that. Like, we're not farming right. We're destroying our earth. So we got to do something better. So this whole thing came up. I went to Hawaii. My spleen immediately was like, nope, this isn't it. Even though it felt good beforehand, and I was like, yeah, I think this is the right decision. I'm going to go to Hawaii. Feels really good. Immediately, I get there on the property, and I have this huge panic attack. I'm like, no, this isn't right. I'm crying. All these emotions are coming out. Like, my kids are all the way across the ocean. I don't think I can do this. Yeah, and I just sit with it. I call my mom. I even called my mom. I was like, Mom, I'm really struggling right now. Realized a lot of it was just my body processing everything that I couldn't process while I was in the vicinity of the other person, my ex-wife. And so that was a big thing. But so I was like, okay, I can't leave right away. So I'll continue with what I'm going to be doing. Basically, part of it was trading hours working on the farm for a place to live. That was like the deal. And I was like, I can do this because it's something I'm excited about and I'll have enough energy. Not true. Uh, I think I got to like 20 hours and I'm like, I made a big mistake. This is just too much work for me, especially right now. Like, I feel like I need like projector rehab. I need to check into a rehab joint and just allow myself to be pampered and taken care of and rest. And so thankfully, and during all this, like I have no money. Like the guy that I was working for, he gave me a bonus, end of the year bonus, and that was getting to Hawaii. And then a friend of mine, who I'm very grateful for, said, "Hey, listen, if anything happens and if we need to bail you out, like I'll fly you back." And I was like, so I called him up and I was like, "Is it too soon to be bailed out?" I actually tried to go back to Boise where my kids were, but all the doors closed. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to plan B. Mom, can I come back and live with you? And so I'm here at my mom's house and I'm really seeking like, okay, what lesson, why has life brought me back to having to live with my mom at 38 years old, broke and exhausted, burnt out? And so one day I'm out at the park in the woods contemplating, and one of my big passions is sacred geometry and studying this idea of sacred geometry, which is really the idea that geometry and these different geometric forms are these patterns that show us the underlying matrix of our reality and how it has come to manifest. And so I get this idea in my head and I'm kind of just sitting there meditating and visualizing these different geometric patterns. And all of a sudden, I just feel like this presence, this warmth, this energy, and I feel really connected on a deeper level than I ever have before to my soul. And so then I start conversing with my soul and I'm like, why am I here? And earlier in the month, the idea of the mother wound really came to me, and I've heard about it before, but I hadn't ever really dove deep into like what is the mother wound. And so I was like, oh, does it have something to do with like, do I need to find healing in my relationship with my mom, and is there something there that I need to heal within myself? And it was like, yes, there's this idea, and I've been talking about it with my mom over the course of while we're here because she's on her own healing journey, so that has been great. And so there was that connection there, but then I realized that, okay, yes, I do have a mother wound. This idea that my mom didn't fully let me be myself. There's a lot of conditioning there. I couldn't fully express who I was and what I needed because my mom, in her hurt and her pain from her childhood, needed her kids to be there for her to fill, whatever gap that was missing or that she felt like she was missing. And so that put a lot of pressure on me. But then my soul started showing me things and giving me things and realizing that like I literally felt that wound as energy in my body. Like there was like this dark heaviness in my body. And then I realized that it was actually there before I was born. I brought it here into this life, into this incarnation. And I started giving kind of these flashes, these images of this past life that I had, that it wasn't anything clear. It was more of a resonance and a feeling, but it felt very medieval. It felt very, in the distant past. And I was doing these things. I was researching. I was experimenting very much with like probably what I'd call alchemy or magic. I was probably like some kind of wizard, doing these things that were not state sanctioned, let's say, by whatever powers that be. And so I was tortured and killed in that life, and that energy never got a chance to fully process through. And so it became trapped in my energy body and my soul. And maybe trapped is not the best word there, but it went up and continued with my soul. Much like how I understand emotional energy that we don't feel and that we don't allow to be processed in our body can become trapped in our body, in our energy body. But it was a much more powerful energy. It was like almost like a conglomeration of all these emotions and, you know, different things.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. And so then I realized, oh, I brought that energy. My soul chose to continue, like it needed to be processed. So the continuation into this life, it brought it here. And that's part of my mission, is to be able to transmute this karmic wound, this karma that is held within my DNA, and to be able to release it. And realizing that it didn't start with my mom, but I chose her, my soul chose her to be a mirror for me. And then later on in life as well, my ex-wife was also a mirror for me to show me this specific wound that was in me. Because when we incarnate into life, we take the draft of forgetfulness so that we forget everything from the past and who we really are. And we are totally blind to these things that we carry over. And so we need these mirrors in our life to make us aware of them so that we can deal with them, so that we can transmute them and move on from that lesson, right? It'll just allow that energy to process. And so it was like this big, like, aha, breakthrough. Like, and I started feeling all of this gratitude and love, for my ex-wife, for my mom, for this energy that's in me, for my past life, for my soul. And I know I'm asking my soul, and I'm using muscle testing too, like just kind of like confirming, and it was kind of giving me this feeling that, oh, can I release this and transmute this kind of similarly to how I do trapped emotions? Because I'm like, what do I do now that I'm aware and I know that this is here? And it's like, yeah, you can do it. It can be that easy. And I was like, at first my mind's like, no, it can't be that easy. Yeah, yeah. Like, it can't be that easy. Like, there has to be some point to it. Like, I have to go through some kind of suffering in order to learn the lesson, right? Like, as if I haven't suffered enough throughout my whole life. And it was like, no, it can be that easy. And it was like almost making sense. It made so much sense of a lot of the Christian biblical language. It was like, oh, admitting your sins. Like, admitting your sins is not typically what we think of it. It's not like, oh, I'm sorry, I did these wrong things, but it's literally to become aware of these things, these shadows, these karmic wounds, these patterns that we hold within ourselves, becoming aware of them, acknowledging them, that they're there, right? That's one of the steps that we need to like actually get rid of, it, is acknowledging that it's there. And then just pretty much letting it go, making the choice to say, okay, I'm done. I can process this, and I can let it move through me. I can feel it, whatever needs to happen. In the emotion code method, in order to release energy, we actually put the energy of the intention into the body through the governing meridian via either a magnet, or I typically just use my hand. Yeah. And so this, your right hand is a strong energy point of chi coming out. So I usually just use that because I'm like, I don't need anything external. And so I just did that, and I was like, I'm gonna just put the intention to release this energy. And then it was an immediate, again, just even higher, just like this energy of like, I feel very different. I feel very light. I feel very changed. And the connection came along with, okay, here's this past life. I was killed and tortured basically for being who I am. So of course, I'm holding this frequency of being very afraid to be who I am and express myself, because that leads to being tortured and killed if I do that. So I don't want to do that again. That sucked. Even though it's unconscious and I don't realize that this is where it's coming from. So then it gets externalized, and things happen in my life to act as mirrors to get me to pay attention to this thing. And so I was essentially oppressing myself by not allowing myself to fully express my true inner being. And I realized, and I believe my soul told me this, is that this was the very shadow of my gene key, of my life's work, which is oppression for me. Gene key 47, the shadow of oppression. And I saw how that was being expressed in my life. And so, yeah, and then ever since then, for the next couple of weeks, like I had all this energy, and I was just seeing life differently. I was like, I don't particularly love Texas, and so I was just kind of like, okay, this is where I am. But then after that, I was like looking around at the neighborhoods and the trees, and I was like, everything. It was almost as like I was seeing everything in like hyper definition, like things were sparkling. It's crazy. I was like, okay, this isn't so bad. Like I don't want to live here, but it's okay. Like life is good, like everything is beautiful. And even when I went back to Boise, which is very much an environment of not where my body isn't congruent and is very unhealthy, I was still seeing it in a new light. And overall just seeing things in a new light. So, so I made those connections, and then I had the thought immediately that was like, well, I have to see because the 47th gift is transmutation, and the shadow is oppression. Yeah, alchemy, right? And literally, if you read Gene Key 47, this is what it's all about: is like literally transmuting karmic wounds and these shadows that from past lives. And so I'm like, did this happen to me because that is my gift, or my gene key of my life's work, or can other people do this regardless of whatever gene key they hold in their life's work sphere? And is it that it's my life's work to help people do this? So so I've been experimenting with that for the last couple weeks, and that's what I mentioned to you, is that I've been working with people to see, hey, can I take you through this process and see what we find and see what happens after, and see what we can find, and just allow it to unfold. And so for the last couple of weeks, I've been working. I think I have worked with 9 other people now, and it's been incredible. Just how, someone described it as like almost like being hypnotized or going into hypnotherapy, which I've never experienced, so I can't speak to that. But someone told me, it's like, yeah, I feel like I've had a timeline shift. But it's hard to really, I can't really like nail down or pinpoint that it was because of this, because obviously everybody's life is very different. Everybody's life is very dynamic. But I can't deny that there is something very powerful in this process, and people being able to get to a very deep place, and me being able to guide them and just allow the guidance to come through. And I've really, through this whole process too, like you were saying, discovering myself through it. Like as I guide other people and I help them, like I'm seeing my gifts come through, and I'm like, damn, I am actually really good at this.
Damn.
Oh, dang. Okay, I can see this. And it's like, it's filling me with so much joy. And I get done with most of the sessions, and I just kind of have to sit for a while because it's just kind of hard to go do anything else mundane because I'm just filled with like so much love and so much gratitude for the work, for the other person, and just so much like pride in them. Like, wow, like you just did all this really hard work that most of us spend lifetimes avoiding. And so it's so cool to see. So
That's so exciting.
that's what's been kind of developing, and it's very cool to see. And I'm not ready to like reveal any of this yet. I need to like put a little more pieces together. But in that process and on more contemplation, I've made more connections between like human design and sacred geometry, and like seeing the patterns in like the actual body graph itself, and making these like mathematical geometric correlations.
This is really exciting because your channel from head to Ajna is visual. Am I right?
Yeah, it's connected to the left eye. Yeah.
And you're out of vision. Am I right?
Yep.
Yeah,
You are correct.
In your chart. But there's this hypothesis, obviously, that, so you have a stronger sense in human design. And for me, it's feeling. For you, it's out of vision. But you're actually able to absorb and draw a lot of intuitive awareness from life, your surroundings, from people through your visual capacity. Now, when you compound that with, that's actually how your head pressure funnels through to your ajna. It's through a visual, almost like stream of consciousness, I want to say. I don't have these mechanics, by the way, so I'm just throwing stuff out yet. But it's like you're beginning to, I can kind of conceptualize the fact that you like come home to yourself in a way. You started to live authentically, and you started to have this broadcast of you that you're here to bring to the world. And what you're bringing to the world I've been sitting here having my mind blown because it's something that I have grappled with pretty much from the start. When I started working with people with human design, I could show them themselves, but it's like they had no capacity to access themselves because of XYZ. And I feel like the XYZ in almost all cases is the animal body carrying reverberations around it not being safe to be yourself. And if you you can Google this or YouTube this, an animal that almost gets eaten by a lion gets away, they shake themselves, and the energy is moved through their bodies, and then they go and eat grass. It's like us as humans, we don't have that completion process. And if you think about the fact that we've been in the cross of planning for 400 years, what do we have to conform to? The individual expression has very little value, very little safety, very little access to, for the average human, unless you're in the aristocracy. And then maybe there's even more boundaries there. But for the average lifespan to be able to be born, live as yourself, express and complete the process, like what you're saying, you were potentially killed in a previous life in the midst of conflict, in the midst of a expression being inhibited. I've heard this before, that you're bringing that back into the next expression of life to be able to complete the process. And it makes so much sense that for most people, knowledge and awareness isn't going to be enough. There has to be an access point to the shadow, the place that prevents us from being ourselves. I call it like autoimmunity of the soul, because you have yourself, but then you're attacking yourself for being yourself. It's like you don't really get to exist in your truth and your expression. And so to be able to, reorganize that, I do honestly feel, I work mostly with women, and there's a lot of, female patterns that go back of maybe silencing the throat, silencing the voice, inhibiting expression, inhibiting desire, inhibiting pleasure, all these different things. And you can see it's generationally carried through the woman. in that family line. And it's not enough to just be like, okay, well, I'm going to deal with this specific situation in my relationship now. It's like, well, you're carrying genetic coding from centuries, probably, that you
Yeah.
maybe never had in these multiple lifetimes the capacity to fully complete and move it through you. So whatever you're doing is so bloody exciting. I'm really excited about this. Also, with that, the fact that I know your chart and your superpowers visually, to be able to start creating visual patterns within the human design and the expression in the chart, I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, me too. 'Cause, yeah, I love it. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Like my outer vision, I think that's a big part of why I was so drawn to sacred geometry in the first place, is because it gives me it's a visual language, right?
Yeah.
And um, I follow someone who is big into it as well, and he always says like the sacred geometry, it's almost like a QR code. You can just look at it, and if you can like just absorb it, you don't even have your mind doesn't even have to understand it, but it somehow downloads information and it just starts unlocking it. And so I've been working with sacred geometry for a while, drawing it, starting to build 3D forms out of wood, as just like even just as an art expression too, just because it's like I look at these things and I'm just like, they're so simple, but it's like I see so much beauty in it, and I know that it's like these underlying codes of our reality. And a big thing I will explain is that, so in the meditation that I've been guiding people through is basically helping them to visualize and not only visualize, but to create the shapes with their mind. And so far it's just been two specific shapes, a cube and an octahedron. And then I ask them like, okay, where do these shapes resonate most in your body? Like, where does it feel like those shapes want to be? And most consistently, some people have had different parts of their body. Like some people will be throat, some people will be belly, chest. But most consistently, and this was my experience, is that the octahedron, which is like essentially this, it's a pyramid with a pyramid coming out of the bottom. So it's like a double-sided pyramid. And then the cube.
Thank you. I wasn't sure what that looked like.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, just imagine a pyramid and then another pyramid upside down connected at the base. So that most people say that was in the chest or the heart center, and that the cube was in the head or the mind. And so I have them visualize that, see where it resonates in their body. If there's a specific color that has manifested with either of these shapes, and then I have them connect the center of those two shapes together so that they're communicating, and then I have them find the center in their own body and connect it as well. But the big thing about those two shapes specifically for me, and what I understand, is that the cube represents the mind, and the mind is really all about this 3D space, right? And the cube represents 3D. It's three axes, this way, and up and down. So the mind is all about just examining the 3D space and trying to make sense of moving through, how do we, what is this 3D realm all about? And then the octahedron is in the heart center, and the octahedron's actually, you actually can't have either one of these shapes without the other. They're what we call a platonic dual. So the octahedron is actually nested within the cube. If you connect each center of each face of the cube, so essentially there's 6 cubes that make up a square. The very center of each, 6 squares that make up the cube. The very center of each square, if you connect those together in a straight line, it will create an octahedron. And the same thing with the octahedron. If you connect the very center of all of the triangles to create the cube. So it's this infinite repeating pattern of just, creating one after the other. There's another shape. I don't want to go, probably this might be boring for some people, but there's another shape that's called a cube octahedron, which is obviously it's a cube and an octahedron combined. And a man by the name of Buckminster Fuller did a lot of research on this in the 40s, I think. And he's the one who invented the geodesic dome, which is one of the most strong structures. But he did a lot of work around this, what's called a cube octahedron. He called it the vector equilibrium, and in physics, literally in physics, they consider it to be the most stable shape because all of the edges around it are of equal length to all of the vector points. So from each of the corners to the very center of the shape, they're all the same length. So that's where the equilibrium comes from. So you achieve this shape is one of the only shapes that achieves this equilibrium and stability. And it's the combination of the cube and the heart, the cube and the octahedron, or the mind and the heart. So I had this very big realization. Oh, of course, when we achieve heart-brain coherence within ourselves, when our mind surrenders to the heart and they're working together as one, we achieve equilibrium and we can fully come into our soul's highest expression, right?
That's blowing my mind, but I'm also curious. I want to poke at this because for someone like myself, I find it very hard to see images inside of me when I close my eyes. I believe there's a name for that, not being able to visualize things. I can do it sometimes, but it's very challenging for me. I'm feelings cognition. I don't really have a visual channel. I'm not visually, I could walk into a room and I wouldn't know what it looked like. I'm just feeling it. I wouldn't notice that there's fairy lights hanging somewhere or whatever it is. Is this the type of, hey?
You just feel the vibe.
Yeah, I'm just feeling the vibe. Some places look funky but feel cool or whatever it is. No, I feel like I've got an aesthetic eye, but it's probably based on how I feel towards the aesthetic rather than how the aesthetic actually looks. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that
my
makes
brain's
sense.
going I don't even know. I'm not obviously going through you haven't actually put me into a meditative state yet, but my brain's going I'm going to be sitting there in the meditation going but what size are these? But I've tried a few meditations before. Is this the type of thing that you find has been accessible to most people that you've worked with? Is this where you start and then you get them into a state of internal coherence to be able to feel the rest of the process? I'm really curious about this.
Yeah, that's what I've been finding. And that's, it's kind of what I accidentally stumbled on with myself. And so I'm I need to see if this works for other people. And I do ask everybody because, I ask them okay, I don't know how familiar you are with sacred geometry. I haven't shown anybody this is what the shape looks like, just so you can more easily visualize it. I've just been going for it,
Yeah.
And then I've been asking them, I'm so how was that? Was it easy for you? And everyone's kind of oh yeah, it was totally fine. I totally saw it. And my intuition tells me that, some people are naturally good at visualizing things. I find it comes and goes for me, as far as the internal imagination. But I can still, once I become more familiar, what I mean? It's I know what the shape is, but sometimes it can be kind of vague and kind of murky, or sometimes it can be very clear and sharp. But what I've been finding is people give me feedback, is that yeah, it was actually very easy the way that I explain it and guide them through. I feel like my intuition is telling me that my channel of surrender, the 4426, is able to actually literally able to transmit transaurically, the in resonance, what is happening. So as I am literally visualizing this and guiding them through it, they're kind of maybe on some level receiving it the way that I'm giving it.
No, that makes
It's so
total
hard to
sense, and it
explain.
makes me think. I don't know if it was Sam or somebody else who Sam Sagar, sorry, who spoke about the environments being something you actually bring to a space.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're wet kitchens as well. I'm wet kitchens. We bring this kind of, alchemical cauldron to wherever we are. And I wonder if that's actually what you do with your outer vision, with your, head to Ajna channel, with what
Yeah.
you're transmitting to somebody. You're actually bringing, like you say, the meditation that is passing through them. This is getting into the cross of the sleeping phoenix, right? And telepathy and all of these things that
Yeah.
are really coming awake in people. And I feel
Yeah.
like you're probably on the cutting edge of that. That's so cool. Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been very fun to explore, and obviously just I'm so grateful for it because it's been, like I was saying, helping me to really see myself through the other and really doing this process of guiding people, because I really try to be aware of when my mind wants to sneak in there and try to manage things and say like, oh, I should probably ask them this question, or oh, I bet they're dealing with this, and it's like, no, mind, you got to shut up and just listen. Like, you just got to listen for the intuition, for what is coming out of here. And like, I don't even try to shut up my mind. It's just like, I'm just aware of it. I'm like, okay, thanks. That's cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I find the most when I listen to that, it's like, okay, that question didn't really go anywhere. But I'll get like, I feel like I get questions from their higher self, because I'll ask things that I'm like, I would never think to ask, or something that's like personal, or something that really resonates with them in a way. And sometimes it's, I've had a couple times where it's kind of snarky and I had to just like,
That's not me, but we'll go
yeah,
with
yeah. Like, okay, I hope they laugh at this, like.
This kind of feeds into a hypothesis that I have that I've noticed in myself. So I recognize that as a projector, we're really here to master a system, right? We're here to study. We're here to really understand intellectually life quite deeply. However, I have had the experience where I have, and maybe you see this with your mind stuff coming in there, but it's like I want to hide behind my system rather than trust myself to be the oracle and to guide. And I love that I feel like I'm hearing this in what you're saying, is that like I have all of these things to draw from, sacred geometry, human design, your own experiences, things like that. But I'm actually the portal, and I'm allowing what needs to come from all of those spaces to come as it comes for each individual person. And what that really requires is presence and attunement and a clear vessel, I want to say, which is all of the parts of what it is to be a projector. You really are the product, because your vessel is what people come to really be changed and to be guided from. It's not something that we can ever really hide behind a system for, because systems will always be fallible. It's really, are you able to fully be there with another person? Everything comes from that, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's what I find. The more I'm just like, okay, I'm just here. Like, I have all of that knowledge. I have all of that language, because that's really what I see any of those things as: human design, gene keys, sacred geometry. It's a language. It's a way for our mind to make meaning, right? Because there is so much outside of the physical reality that we just can't see in this physical body, at least not yet. And so our mind has to try to make some sense out of things. But when I get into a session with someone, it's just kind of like, okay, I just got to set all that stuff aside if it comes through, that's great, because there's a lot of times, like I was saying, like something will come through and then I'll hear my mind like, oh yeah, it's because he's got this in his chart and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I'll set that aside for later, and I'll literally go back and just send them like a voice message, and be like, hey, I didn't want to put this on you because I don't want you to get into your mind during the session, but here's something to just add to your contemplation and integration afterwards, which is great. I love that. But in the moment, in the session, it's all about that connection and presence, and like, what do you need now? What is going to be most resonant? And then that's when the things come through that I could not even know to ask them, right? Because I could be all up in my head and like, oh, I need to ask them about this shadow or that gate or that, and that could get in the way of like what their higher self is actually really trying to say and ask them and get them to look at. And really, that's just the key, I feel like, to me being there, being a conduit, what I provide. Obviously, my own design and wiring comes into play because, how I can see the patterns and, see all those things and transmit to them in a way that is exactly what they need to hear. I lost my train of thought.
Presence in the moment, isn't it?
Yeah. So that presence, just being there. Yeah. I mean, that's really, it's just been so cool to see that. So, yeah. And it's funny because I was thinking the other day, I probably did too many this week. I did like 5. And afterwards, I'm like, I can't even say exhausted. I don't think exhausted is the right word. I'm really tired. But then there's also the other half of it that I'm really fulfilled. And like I have this like just this deep gratitude that's in my body that's like, yes, I'm tired, but it feels like a good, successful tired. And I was like, okay.
That's such an interesting reflection on success as well, because I've been having these conversations lately with some of the projectors I work with, and it's like, do you actually want or even need more money right now? Or are you just craving to be accessed? Are you craving your depth to be accessed? Do you want to sit with somebody who is so fully with you and inviting you into them? And I think that's what we can get that confused a lot of the time, us projectors, because we're living in this world that we live in. But the truest craving of our heart is what you've just spoken about, like, access me and then let the potato rest for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's profound, and I see it as a healing for us projectors to have those experiences, and everything leads from that, I believe.
Yeah, I feel that very deeply, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like we've only scratched the surface. I'm going to have to get you back on here, Ben, for another conversation. So
yeah, that would be lovely. I'd love to come back on.
How can people find you? I know you're doing some really profound work, and you also have your own podcast, which has incredible conversations on it. Where's the best way for people to get in touch?
Yeah, so right now, I don't have my website up right now, but you can find me through Instagram, which is esoteric.alchemy with a K. So I can send you the link. Yeah, put that
I'll
in there.
have all these links in the show notes. So.
Yeah, and then the link in my Instagram and on my YouTube, that has the link where you can find like all the other stuff basically and how to get in contact. And I'm going to be, I just ran the trial of this stuff, so I think based on its success, I'm going to start offering it, putting it out there to anybody who's ready to really dive deep and do this profound inner work and see if there's any patterns or shadows that you've just been struggling with to figure out what is holding me back. I can't quite understand. And I do want to mention too, the number one thing, it's actually funny, so far I've only done this with projectors, but the number one thing that I've seen and that we get down to almost at the very core is that it was always this underlying fear of being seen. And that just, yeah, it really hits me, and one thing that came up was like, isn't it just the projector dilemma? The need to be recognized and the fear to be seen.
Oh my gosh. Okay, this is a teaser for the next episode.
Yeah.
Because I actually wanted to talk to you about this in terms of relationships. I wonder if we get into the relationships that we get into because they're comfortable, because they don't really poke at you. But this is all a teaser for our next chat.
Teaser. Yeah.
But I love that. Yeah, that is the healing that we need, Ben, to be able to feel safe and being seen. That there's actually nothing wrong with us. There's nothing bad about us. There's nothing, unworthy. The core of us is perfect. There's nothing to hide, really. Thank you for your medicine and your awareness and your time. It's honestly a treasure to get to talk to you. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon. And for those of you listening, if you have comments, questions, please do join the conversation. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what stuck out to you most from this conversation and what would you like to hear more of. See you soon.